Got the America vibes right now. That's what I'm talking about. Evening, everybody. Welcome to Carving Up Live. We're live on Facebook. We're live on the Grids YouTube channel. We're live on the Carving It Up YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. It's great to be with you to celebrate American excellence at its finest. We're going to be talking about the Team USA men's basketball team, but I also just want to give credit to Team USA in totality. The fact that we finished with a tying 40 gold medals, the fact that we led by a mile every other country with 122 medals total. Safe to say, Paris 2024 was very good to the United States of America, and just wanted to pay tribute to the greatest country in the world. And the fact that the star, at least at the very end of the Olympics, was one more Stephen Curry II. We'll get into him in just a moment. Trust you me. We'll talk about LeBron James. We will talk about LeBron James. Believe me. Just about 12 minutes. We'll certainly shout out to the Remix crew. We're going to be talking about Caleb Williams' preseason debut. Excited to get into that. A couple things that I saw that I was absolutely blown away by. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, Bo Nix, I'm starting to have my opinion shift on him a little bit. And it's not necessarily for the reasons that you might think. And at the end of today's show, why I am not just assuming, we know what assuming can do, that Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James will not be in the 2028 Olympics. I'm not saying it's likely. It's more, unlikely than likely that we see those three in the Olympic Games, certainly all together. All I'm saying is it's not a 0% chance that at the end of today's show. But first, oh my goodness. I won't reiterate what I said on Thursday's show regarding, the nonsensical takes on Steph Curry early in the Olympics about how the fact that, he's looking older. I don't like what I'm seeing from Steph Curry. He's not showing up the way Kevin Durant and LeBron James are, and Anthony Edwards and Anthony Davis, guys like that. I think he's starting to look old. And what did I say on the show last week and the last couple of weeks? It's not that Steph Curry's looking old or showing signs of age. You know how I know that? He's getting a shot. He's getting open looks. He's just not making them. And if there's any human being, I talked about this all last season with the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, the Chiefs have an offense problem. Well, lucky for them, they have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to go on a limb and say they'll have it fixed by in the end of the season. And sure enough, they did, and they won the Super Bowl. When it comes to the shooting thing, I think it's a safe bet. When it comes to getting out of slumps, there's no human in the history of civilization that should have more faith and more trust put in one than Steph Curry. So you look at what he did the last couple of games. We could show you his numbers. Then we'll show you the Curry flurry that he put on display in the fourth quarter, particularly in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter in the gold medal game for France. We can show you what Steph Curry did when the moment counted the most. Last couple of games, he'd scored 60 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 60% of the field. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. Steph Curry shot 65%. From three-point range. Oh, and he was just a casual plus 40 when he was on the floor for Team USA. We could talk about the fact that Steph, who had been playing pretty well, he made his shots over the course of the first 3.5 quarters. LeBron was doing his thing. Anthony Davis, who I told y'all would be the X factor, would be the guy come off the bench that I thought would make the biggest impact. He played well for Team USA. But when the moment got the brightest, and this sort of leads me into my big take on Steph Curry, kind of what I was thinking about over the weekend, thinking about this morning, this afternoon, as I was prepping for the show, is the fact that when it comes to big game performers, you cannot name 5 people in the history of the game that are better than Steph Curry. Among star players, we're not talking about your occasional role player, your Robert Ory's, your Andre Iguodala's, your Steve Kerr's that have made big shots throughout their career. We're talking superstars. If you're talking about the 5 greatest players ever in terms of clutch situations, is there anybody that I'd rather have than Steph Curry? Because once you notice when we talk about clutch, when we talk about guys stepping up, by the way, Steph Curry is the reigning clutch player of the year, just playing to my point. But that aside, is the fact that we have other players on your team who have hit big shots in their career. LeBron James, contrary to popular belief, is actually clutch. Kevin Durant hit a lot of clutch shots in his career. Anthony Edwards, young, but he's hit some big shots. Seen a lot of Devin Booker's hit big shots in his career. If you notice in the fourth quarter, you know what they all did? When the moment got the brightest, when France was making a run and Wemby, who did his thing, Victor Wembanyama, I'm going to say it today, and I'll come back to this maybe years down the road, Wemby's going to get a gold medal before it's all said and done, France is going to win a gold medal in the next 3 Olympics or however much longer Wemby's going to compete in every 4 years in the Summer Olympics. They're going to get a gold medal while he's there. But while he's doing this thing and France is going on a run, and all of a sudden you look up, oh, it's a 3-point game. This is starting to get a little dicey. And that's when LeBron James, that's when Steve Kerr said, you know what, Steph, you got this, buddy. Let's see what you can do. And you see what, and it goes to, we'll get into the clutch factor in just a moment. But Mike Greenberg, who I have a lot of respect for, does get up in the mornings on ESPN. At times, and I love Green. I think he's one of the best in the business. At times, I feel like he can be a little too prisoner of the moment, good or bad. But he said something that, while I didn't totally agree with, I think isn't an insane statement to make. Mike Greenberg this morning said that that's the greatest shot in the history of basketball, that last 3 that Steph Curry hit. Now, that I don't agree with. But I can show you the list. In my opinion, these are the 5 greatest shots ever. Alfred put this graphic together. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All graphics provided by my man Alfred Parslar Jr. Show this right here. Okay, these are the greatest shots. Not necessarily the most clutch, the greatest shots in basketball history. Number 1 is Jordan's game winner against the Jazz in the 98 finals. That's the last shot MJ ever took as a Chicago Bull. It really encapsulated his career in that Bulls dynasty. Number 2, Ray Allen's game-tying shot against the Spurs. I think that's the clutchest shot ever hit in the history of the NBA. It held off Tim Duncan from going 6 for 6 in the finals. It helped the Heat win that game. They went on to win Game 7. They won back-to-back titles in 12 and 13. Number 3 is Kyrie's game-winning shot against the Warriors in Game 7 2016. It won the Cavs their first championship in history, Cleveland's first championship in a half century, and cemented LeBron James as at least one of the 2 greatest players ever. More on LeBron later. Number 4, I've got Steph's dagger. I think Steph's dagger against France is the 4th greatest shot in the history of basketball, given the moment, given the stakes, given the fact that this was an Olympic pool that was as deep, I've talked about it the last couple of weeks, as deep as we've ever seen it. And it was Steph Curry who had LeBron, Kevin Durant, Booker, everybody just said, we're going to step back, we're going to defer to you, my man. Little 6'3" guy to Davidson, old guy allegedly, 36 years old. I tell you, he can barely get out there on the floor some nights. The shot over 2 French defenders to essentially ice that game. And finally, at number 5, I put Kawhi's game-winning shot against the Sixers in Game 7, 2019. Kawhi's shot would be higher, but the fact of the matter is the 3 shots above Steph were all shots in the finals. All 3 helped win a championship. Kawhi's was in the second round, and it was a little lucky. All that said, big game performers in the history of the NBA among superstars. There's nobody better than Steph in the current game other than LeBron James. In an NBA history, I think he's undeniably top 5. We could talk about the Steph Magic discussion. I'm still not quite there yet. I think if Steph gets another title, he absolutely passes Magic because you got to consider Magic just so happened to inherit the greatest player of all time at the time that he inherited him. That was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. A 6-time MVP, 6-time champion. And the 3rd best player of all time, in my opinion. All-time leading scorer for nearly 4 decades before LeBron passed him. Steph inherited one of the worst-run franchises in basketball, turned it into a dynasty. That's another discussion for another day. Big game performers. LeBron's Game 7 numbers, ridiculous. He's averaged well over 30 points. I think he's only lost like 2 Game 7s in his career. It's like crazy stats in those winner-go-home decisive games. Michael Jordan, obviously, if Jordan's got you down a series, if he's got the advantage, it's over. Jordan's going to stuff you out. You think about guys like Shaquille O'Neal, who's been big time in the finals throughout the course of his career, went through a stretch from 2000 to 2002 and the Lakers three-peated. He was averaging well over 30 points, like 14, 15 assists, was just dominant in those finals. Nobody could stop him. I think that battle's been... Larry Bird's been great in big games as well. Steph's in that group. Well, Bryson, what about the 2016 finals? What about the 1984 finals for Magic Johnson? What about the fact that Michael Jordan was 1-9 in his career prior to getting Scottie Pippen? We just going to ignore that? The fact that Shaq has been swept more times than any player and any superstar rather than in NBA history? Every player has their warts. Every player has their flaws, and there's no question the 2016 finals are the lowest point of Steph Curry's basketball playing career. That aside, how about the fact that in the NBA finals, the biggest stage there is, other than the Olympics, right? How about the fact, I wrote this down, that Steph Curry has 5 times in his finals career averaged 25, 5, and 5. 25 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's done that 5 times in the NBA Finals. No one else ever has. No one. 25, 5, and 5. That's what Steph Curry's done. For the record, Magic did that 1 time. And I've heard Magic's the better overall. Not in the finals, he's not. The lights get the brightest. Don't forget the 2015 finals when Steph, casually in a 2-2 series against the Cavs, dropped 37 on Cleveland to help Golden State to a Game 5 win. They go on to win the championship, and Steph objectively should have been finals MVP that year in 2015. If it wasn't Steph, it should have been LeBron. LeBron was the best player in that series. You go to 2018, when Kevin Durant disappeared in the fourth quarter against the Cavs, Game 1. It was Steph Curry who tied the game with an and-1 layup, helped the Warriors win that Game 1 in overtime against Cleveland. Game 3, the game where KD goes off. Who hit the go-ahead shot? Wasn't Kevin Durant. It was Steph Curry. 2019 finals. Steph, he missed the shot against Toronto. Yeah, and with a completely battered and beat-up roster, averaged 30 when Toronto's entire defensive game plan was to double and sometimes triple team Mr. Curry. They played out box and one gimmicky defense. And obviously against the Boston Celtics, who, with the additions of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, ran through the entire league last year. Yes, Steph dropped well over 30. I think Steph averaged like 34 points in the series, shot over 50% for the field, over 40% from 3, and won the finals MVP. With the Defensive Player of the Year guarding him, mind you. Big games. There's not 5 players. I'd argue 3 players in the history of the game that I would take over Steph Curry. LeBron, Jordan, that's probably it. That's not to say Steph's one of the 5 best players ever, although I think he is not only knocking on the door, I think he's kicking the door down pretty soon. With another championship, MVP feels a little less likely than the championship. Who are we to sit up here and say that he's not in that conversation? Steph has put together a resume. I'll show this number right here. Steph, in his career, is one of 2 players in the history of the National Basketball Association to have multiple MVPs, multiple scoring titles, multiple NBA titles, and an Olympic gold medal. Steph Curry's done that. There's only one guy that can say he did that. You know his name is? Michael Jordan. Like, we're starting to run out of, I'm about to get into LeBron. We're starting to run out of talking points, debate points to put down Steph. I think at this point, it is the one thing, there's 2 things about Steph that aren't remotely debatable. Number 1, he's the greatest shooter ever. I've always said Steph as the greatest shooter ever is, number 1, I feel like it kind of minimizes Steph in a way. Like, we think of him as only a shooter when he does so many other things I've talked about during the segment. But also the fact that Steph, it's one of those discussions, Steph is the greatest shooter ever, that we don't even bother arguing. Who's the greatest hockey player? Yeah, we don't even argue that. We argue who's number 2 behind Wayne Gretzky. Who's the greatest shooter ever? It's Steph, obviously. It's not even remotely debatable. And so there's that about Steph. But there's also the fact that when you talk about his longevity, when you talk about the gold medal now adding to his resume, the finals MVP, leading the Golden State Warriors dynasty when that looked like it was never going to happen early in Steph's career when he was dealing with the ankle injuries, he's an unquestionable top 10 player of all time. Again, I've got him banging on the top 5. Maybe I have him higher than most. That's fine. But you cannot objectively name 10 players that have better careers or better players than Steph. You can't. Folks, he literally changed how a sport is played, coached, and analyzed. Is Victor Wembanyama, not to say Wemby wouldn't be great, by the way. Wemby's going to be Wemby regardless. 7'5" for crying out loud with game. Is Wemby shooting threes if Steph Curry never exists? Are we seeing the rise of players like Trae Young if Steph Curry never comes into the picture? The three-point revolution. I hear Mike D'Antoni. Yeah, that won a lot of championships in Phoenix. That's why I hear Mike D'Antoni, the 7 seconds less offense. That's what changed that. Yeah, and it got how many rings out of it? Steph's gotten 4. With one all-time teammate for 2 of them, Kevin Durant. Not to minimize Clay or Draymond. They've both been critically important, neither in the same ballpark as KD or Steph. So, big game performers. Steph's in the top 5 ever. All-time players, regardless of what you got him in the top 10, I got him at number 6, 1 slot behind Magic. You cannot argue. He is one of the 10 best players ever. You cannot put up a conversation where Steph is below the 10th best player, who I think is Bill Russell, by the way. Shout out to Bill Russell, late great Bill Russell. But what a performance. I mean, the last 3 minutes of that game for Team USA, Steph 3, KD free throws, Steph 3, Steph 3, Steph 3. That's what he does. That's what he's been doing for 15 years, going on 16. And listen, let this be a reminder. I tweeted this the other day when Team USA won gold, and then I'll shift to LeBron. Let this be a reminder to the Golden State Warriors. That guy can still lead you to a championship. But your second best player doesn't need to be Draymond Green. Can Draymond be your third best player? Yeah, I think so. I think the Warriors' record with and without Draymond shows you that. His value is still apparent. But LeBron's still got AD. Giannis has got Dame. Jokic has got Jamal Murray, although Jamal wasn't very good in the Olympics, but Jamal's a really good big game player. You talk about guys, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's got Chet Holmgren. He's got Jalen Williams. He's got this up-and-coming Thunder team. Luka's got Kyrie. We can go up and down the board. Tatum's got Brown. There's eyes of some, Brown has Tatum. I still think Tatum's the best player in the Celtics, but you get the picture. Steph has Jonathan Kuminga, who has talent and upside, and I think will be great, but is he now? Hey, KD, you know, that playing with Steph has brought back some old memories, huh? That was some good old days, huh? I'm just throwing it out there. I suggested at the end of Friday's show, I think it is, that needs to be the Warriors' next pursuit, is trying to lure Kevin Durant from Phoenix, because he loves Book. We know that, but does he love the ownership in Phoenix, which is pretty darn reckless and makes poor basketball decisions, and just hired Mike Budenholzer? I'm just saying. Steve Kerr's a little bit better than Coach Bud, if I do say so myself. But that 2-game stretch. And see, LeBron won MVP. We'll shift to LeBron in about 30 seconds. LeBron wins MVP, I think, because he was great and consistent from the start to the end. And he was the leader for Team USA. The reverence from the other guys in that squad to LeBron was apparent. But in the last two, if we're basing off the last 2 games, then it would have been Steph by a mile. Now, I would have had a huge issue if it were LeBron, Steph, and KD as like co-MVPs. I think that would have been really cool, given that this might be their last Olympics together. Notice that I said might. Last segment of the show, I think it is still on the table that we get them in the Olympics. I'll talk about that at the end of Carving It Up. Let's shift to LeBron James. Because I've said for the last year and a half, going back to when he broke Kareem's record, become the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, that I'm like, that was kind of my... Okay, he's the greatest. He's the greatest. Shelving that for a moment, because that's just my opinion. You know when you're like 11, 12 years old, and your parents or whoever raises you, they take you, they put you, it's a one-on-one or two-on-one in a room, and they say, okay, listen, insert name. We're going to have the talk. And it's kind of awkward, It's about some, you learn things that you didn't know before, right? The talk. It's kind of the big boy, big girl talk. I think it's time we have an adult conversation about LeBron James. It's time we have an adult conversation. The Jordan fans are starting to run out of arguments. They are. Because one thing that I value, and I think a lot of folks value, they just may not even realize it, in other industries, it can be finance, it can be sales, it can be the trucker, right? Who's puts in the long hours, puts in the long miles, and puts together a long career of service to his company. We all respect longevity. And in the United States of America, in the modern era, because you talk about Willie Mays back in the day, guys, baseball players played forever back in the mid-20th century. Talking about the modern era. Take Tom Brady aside. There's not an athlete that can say they've done what LeBron James has done in terms of longevity. We could show you his numbers, what he did in the Olympics. He was the best player on the team. He was second in points per game by a tick to Steph. First in minutes per game, first in rebounds per game, first in assists per game, first in field goal percentage, where he shot 66% from the field. And he's 39 years old, but going to be 40 in 4 months. None of what LeBron is doing, and notice what I do when I argue that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. None of what LeBron is doing is minimizing a darn thing that Michael Jordan did. Nothing. Any championship he wins, any MVP he claims, any gold medal that he puts around his neck. None of that minimizes what the great Michael Jordan did between 1984 and majority of it and 1998. But the idea that a guy who can do everything, and I do mean literally everything, better and at a higher and more efficient level than Michael Jordan, scoring, shooting percentage, rebounds, assists, defense, you can make the case. I mean, I remember a time and place where I did a segment on the fact that Michael Jordan's Defensive Player of the Year stats, a little bit juiced by the local Chicago, scorekeepers. A little bit juiced. That the home road discrepancies were, let's just call it stark and call it a day. And LeBron, despite being first team All-NBA, or All-Defense rather, in 2013, they gave the award to Marc Gasol, who wasn't even first team All-Defense. So you can argue amongst yourselves, but it would appear that LeBron's peak defensively was probably better than Jordan's. LeBron's won with different teammates. LeBron's won with different coaches. LeBron's won in different systems. LeBron's won in different cities, different conferences. And he just happened to win gold medal as the best player at age 39 years old on the most talented Olympic roster ever, in the most talented Olympic field ever. He makes every teammate better. He's clutch when you need him to be. And he's one of the most coachable and liked superstar teammates ever. And I think this matters. When you ask Anthony Edwards, ask Steph Curry. I mean, Steph Curry and LeBron, you'd think they were like childhood friends, by the way. And ironically, they were actually born in the same hospital, which is just wild, in Akron, Ohio. But I mean, LeBron and Steph, I mean, they are just bear hugging after every game. Steph was the one who announced LeBron, man, you are going to be the flag bearer at the opening ceremony of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. KD speaks highly of LeBron and is reverent to LeBron. Anthony Davis, who's obviously been his teammate for the last 5 years, loves him. Everybody in Team USA, the king, you're the man, I think it does matter when we talk about longevity. And one could make a case as why he's been so great this late into his career. The fact that Jordan's teammates could not stand him whatsoever. And Jordan, for as great as he is, and he is no lower. I've heard some put him as, Jordan's the third best player ever. Respect to Kareem. Kareem is not better than Jordan. And I love Kareem. I think Kareem is mostly underrated by many. And he's the third best player ever. He's not better than Jordan. He's not. His peak, his prime was not better than Michael Jordan. How many teammates did Michael Jordan make better relative to how many teammates LeBron made better? Because I can remember a time and place when Scottie Pippen, the year after Michael Jordan left, just so happened to finish top 5 in MVP voting. And the Bulls, if not for a bad officiating error against the Knicks in the second round, they may make it to the finals in 1994 with no Michael Jordan. Because they had Phil Jackson, who was successful elsewhere. They had Scottie Pippen, who was part of a Portland Trail Blazers team that had the Lakers down 3-1 in their dynasty. They had a lot of guys. Dennis Rodman was successful with the Bad Boy Pistons. He had a role to play. Horace Grant, who was with Jordan in the first part of the dynasty, he was successful with the Orlando Magic. One could argue better. Kyrie Irving, prior to this season, was really talented, and that's basically it. Prior to LeBron James. Had never been past the second round prior to this past season outside of his career with LeBron. Talk about guys like Chris Bosh, never reached the heights that he did until LeBron. Kevin Love, who we saw toward the end of his time in Cleveland, was a receding player. LeBron was getting him to finals. Ask yourself, if I may be so bold, when Jordan retired the first time, the Bulls won over 50 games and very easily could have gotten to the finals that year. And LeBron leaves the Cavs not once but twice in 2010 and 2018, and they win a combined, if memory serves me correct, 38 games combined. Does that factor into my argument that LeBron makes teammates better more so than Jordan does? You darn skip it does. Most talented Olympic field in history. Most talented Olympic team that we put together. The best shooter of all time, and as I said, one of the greatest big game players in Steph Curry. One of the greatest scorers ever, Kevin Durant. Anthony Edwards, who, you see what he's doing now. You wait till about 5-6 years from now. Watch out, NBA. This kid's coming. Anthony Davis, in my view, best defensive player in the league. Devin Booker, great scorer, has a 70-point game on his resume. And they all deferred throughout the tournament to LeBron James. They all revered LeBron James. LeBron, you're the king. You carry us to the finish line. Now, it was Steph in the last couple of games who finished the deal. But in many of those instances, it was LeBron who was setting him up with the shot. Scoring, LeBron's better. Passing, he's infinitely better. Rebounds, defense. By the way, does it matter? Would it help Michael Jordan's legacy if he had, I don't know, the greatest defensive player in the history, greatest defensive play in the history of basketball, one that still haunts me to this day, which LeBron did in the 2016 finals, the block. And we hear about Michael Jordan, the shot against the Cavs. Bulls didn't even win the championship that year. Not to say it wasn't a clutch shot. It was a very clutch shot given the circumstances. That was 1989. Bulls did not win the championship that year. That block by LeBron James is what led to the Kyrie 3 to win the championship for the Cavs back in 2016 over a 73-9 Golden State Warriors team. 8 straight finals, 10 in total. Folks, when LeBron James came into the NBA, Michael Jordan had just retired for the final time. It's been 22 years, going on 22 years. He's still awesome. I find it very interesting. We talk about that 03 draft class as one of the best ever, as we should. LeBron, Melo, Wade. In 2024, Melo has been retired for 2 years. He's on the sideline cheering on Team USA. Dwayne Wade has been retired for 5 years. By the way, Melo, Wade, all-time legends. I was a huge Wade fan back in the day. Wade, all-time legend, retired 5 years ago, has been inducted in the Hall of Fame, calling the game for NBC. And LeBron's still going as strong as ever. Keep in mind, he's coming off of a season in which he averaged 25, 8, and 7, shot over 50% from the field, and over 40% from three-point range. I thought, wrongly, coming into the Olympics, at least post-NBA season, I did my top 10 players in the league. I had LeBron among American players as the third best player in the league. Among American players, I had Steph above him, and I had Tatum above him. Well, Tatum, that is way off the table now. And that's not to say Tatum's like out of the top 10. That'd be ridiculous. I still love Tatum, but he was objectively awful in the Olympics, which is why the criticism of Kerr not playing him was insane. But LeBron's obvious clearly better than Tatum. And as great as Steph is, and you heard me wax poetic about my guy, LeBron's still better than Steph. We can show you the numbers one more time. LeBron, second on Team USA in scoring and first in the following: minutes, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage. 39 years old. Most stacked Olympic field ever. Jokic was there. Giannis was there. Steph Curry was there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was there. Victor Wembanyama was there. And the old guy, currently the oldest player in the NBA, was the last man standing as it pertained to most valuable player. None of anything that I have just said is not to say Michael Jordan is not an all-time legend. It is no lower, LeBron and Jordan, no lower than the second best player ever. He could not do what this man could do. Darn sure at his age. Michael at the end, when he was 39, 40 years old, he's good. He's still scoring 20 points per game, but was out of shape, didn't take care of his body, was even harsher to teammates. Meanwhile, LeBron is beloved by teammates, which is why he gets the best out of them. We can maybe do a whole show one day about what LeBron's the GOAT, but what he just did, listen, I knew LeBron would be a key cog to this team, obviously. Certainly in terms of leadership, in terms of getting his own shot, certainly setting up others. And this is why I said, and I correctly predicted, that Steph would be the leading scorer for Team USA. It's because LeBron's going to look to get Steph going. He's the greatest shooter of all time. You can get him going. And LeBron's an all-time great playmaker. And when it was all said and done, it's like, gosh darn it, man, he's still the best. He's still not the best player in the world. I think the top three guys are Jokic, Giannis, and Luka in that order. 1, 2, 3. Giannis, Jokic, Luka. Jokic, Giannis, Luka, rather. And then I think it goes to LeBron. Still. He's going to be 40 in December. And he's still as unstoppable as ever. He's the flag bearer. There's a reason for that. Was dubbed Captain L'America for Team USA. There's a reason for that. He was the MVP of the entire Olympics in the sport of men's basketball. There's a reason for that too. And I'll talk about it later. Just a little bit of a tease for my last segment of the show. At what point, and we may never see it, we don't know how much longer LeBron's going to play. At what point is LeBron going to be a net negative when he's on the floor? At what point are we going to get to where whoever LeBron plays for, Lakers, could be anybody, where the team is actually better when he's not on the floor? How old? Throw out a number. 45, 6, 50? I mean, Tom Brady at the end was a receiving player who's never a net negative. The Bucks were not better when Tom was on the field, and the Lakers are obviously, we saw the playoffs and the entire season last year were clearly, LeBron was keeping them afloat along with Anthony Davis with a poorly coached basketball team and frankly not a well-put-together roster. It's remarkable what he just did. MVP at age 39 years old. He's one of the oldest Olympians of any country. In the most talented Olympic pool ever, and he's the MVP. Absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. None of this is to diminish Jordan. Jordan's longevity. He was still great when he was 35 years old. Bron's 4 years older than that and is still phenomenal. Not great, not fringe all-star. No. Still more than capable of leading the most talented Team USA team ever to a gold medal. Unbelievable. By the way, you might have noticed, I don't know if you could see it, celebrating Steph, more of my night shirt. I love the shirt that Steph wore after the game. It was night in French. Don't ask me to try and say it. I don't know French. I know a little bit of Espanol. ¿Cómo estás? That's all I got. But I thought that was a cool, I guess tribute, but also somewhat of a troll of France. I mean, that's one thing that's impressive too for Team USA. That was a road game. I mean, Wemby, the French players, Nick Batum, Evan Fournier, those guys, that was a home game for them. And Team USA didn't blink. Did not blink. And didn't do so against Serbia either. They were led at the end by Steph and throughout by the king. And let's be real, folks, by the GOAT, LeBron James. LeBron James! I need to get that soundbite on here for next NBA season. More on Steph, LeBron, and KD at the end of the show. Let's transition to football, though, because this was the opening weekend for the preseason. And obviously, as is mostly the case, if we have any quarterback class worth their salt. Well, how do the quarterbacks look? Well, we didn't get to see much Drake May from the Patriots. Got to see a little Joe Milton. I have questions about his ability to see the field. That's a little bit of a concern of mine. It was when he was at Tennessee playing for my Vols. But the arm strength is obvious, and the mobility is as a factor. So I liked what I saw from Joe Milton. Didn't really get to see enough from Drake May to really make a judgment on him. I think he's a very raw prospect. I think the Patriots would be best served if he does not play a single snap this year. I think he is not ready, but the talent is obviously there. Jaden Daniels was really good. I liked what I saw. I love Michael Penix Jr. You saw some flashes there. And I absolutely defended the Falcons in selecting him because I think when they're done with Kirk, that's their guy. Penix is going to be there for a while. I'll talk about Bo Nix later. Who am I missing? J.J. McCarthy. I'm not high on him at all, but I liked what I saw from him in his preseason debut. I think it was against the Raiders. I want to talk about Caleb Williams. Number 1 overall pick. One of the most hyped quarterback prospects in recent memory. And he only played a couple of drives against the Buffalo Bills. But I was blown away by a couple of things. So we can go ahead and show you some of the film. So first of all, Jaden Daniels made a great throw in that game when the Commanders were playing the Jets in their preseason game. It was surpassed. I think Jaden might have played it later in the day on Saturday, I think. But, or maybe at the same time, I don't know. But Caleb Williams' throw, this is against the Buffalo Bills, okay? And Buffalo's playing some of their starters. Josh Allen played. I mean, Chicago and Buffalo played a big chunk of their starters early in this preseason game, obviously, before they took everybody out. Watch this throw. Sorry for the podcast audience, those that are listening on audio. For YouTube and Facebook, look at this. Watch this throw by Caleb Williams. This is a play action. He's rolling to his right. He's pump faking. That is a ridiculous throw. We're going to show you the replay on it from a different angle. The pump fake. I don't think people realize how much steam you got to put in that football in order to put it in the absolute perfect little tiny window to complete it. And what's also, I think, maybe not quite as impressive from an aesthetic standpoint, but what matters for the Chicago Bears or for Caleb Williams moving forward, the fact that he's already got this down pat. Guy gets the ball out of his hands fast. Look at this. We're going to show it to you back-to-back times. So if you missed it, you can see it again. First play of the game third down for Chicago. Bam! Look how fast the ball comes out of Caleb Williams' hands. That's like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes stuff. And listen, he was compared to Mahomes. That was his comp coming out of USC. That is, if he's that now, listen, it's on the Bears to put the right coaching staff around him and be able to tweak the other what flaws he has. Because as I said about Caleb coming out of USC, and I talked about my top quarterback prospects coming out of college since Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck was kind of somewhat like the chosen one. And I still believe if Indianapolis had given him something that resembled an NFL offensive line, he would still be playing and he would have a Super Bowl by now. I think Andrew Luck was that special. So since Andrew Luck, there's been Trevor Lawrence. There's been plenty of other great, Kyler Murray was the first pick. Jared Goff was the first pick. So was Baker Mayfield. We've had quarterbacks in that time span be high draft picks. Some of them go on to have successful careers. Some of them ended up being good, and some of them ended up not living up quite to expectations the way that we thought. Jameis Winston. Caleb and Joel Klatt was the first one on this. Joel Klatt, who does a great job working for Fox on college football. And I totally co-sign what he said. That Caleb is the only prospect that he's seen, frankly, that I've seen coming out of college. Not only does he really not have a flaw, there's one little one that I'll touch on, but in terms of everything across the board and everything on the field and off the field, he's a virtual A to A+ in all of them. Arm strength, you saw it there, that you can't even argue that. He gets the ball out of his hands quick and can fit the balls into tiny windows. Accuracy, that's, again, the throw right there to I think it was to Kmet or whoever the Bears tight end was down the right sideline for against the Bills. Beautiful. Again, that's an Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes throw right there. Josh Allen to a certain degree. Accuracy, Caleb's got that down pat. Mobility, I mean, you saw it right there. Being able to get outside the pocket, make throws off balance, off schedule. He can do that. He can make throws inside the pocket that we saw really in his first year at USC, not as much as second year because the offensive line wasn't very good. So mobility, arm strength, accuracy, durability. He was healthy throughout his time at USC. The Bears, and this is why I really like Chicago coming into this year, is they've done a little bit like my Steelers have done, like really putting an emphasis the last couple of years on the offensive line. One of their big draft picks was my man Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Go Vols. And that's kind of why I'm so hard on Justin Fields, who happens to be one of my quarterbacks now in Pittsburgh, is how can you not make it work with DJ Moore? How can you not make it work with some of these skill position guys in Chicago and the run game, which was great with the Bears, and an improving offensive line? Like, only 7 wins, that's it? One thing I will guarantee, knock on wood for health, Caleb will get you to over 7 wins. That's, I think, one of the safest bets of the NFL offseason. Over-unders, I don't know what over-under for Chicago is, 7.5, 8.5, take the over. And even off the field. And the criticism, oh my goodness, Caleb paints his nails. Stop the presses. He puts polish or whatever on his nails. Oh, it's that. Can't draft him now, I guess. He cried into his mother's arms after a loss to Washington. First of all, the nail polish, got to be able to. I don't really care. His fashion choices, I don't think, dictate how he plays the game. I used to feel that way about guys like Cam Newton. I really don't anymore. I was wrong on that. And the crying with his mom. Again, as I've always said, and I'll never forget this. Folks know I've been critical of Joel Embiid. Going to cross-sport example. Folks know I've been critical of Joel Embiid throughout his time for his playoff failures. What I've never at any point doubted, at no point with Joel Embiid have I been like, oh, he doesn't care enough. He doesn't try hard enough. Never. And the reason I say that, I referenced Kawhi Leonard's game-winning shot against Philadelphia 5 years ago early in the first segment of the show. Remember when Kawhi hit that shot? Remember they showed Philadelphia, the dejected 76ers walk into that Toronto Raptors road locker room? Remember it showed Ben Simmons and he looked somewhat apathetic, like, okay, he just hit a game-winning shot. Guess that's the end of our season. And then they showed Joel Embiid, and he was almost, I don't want to say inconsolable, but weeping after the Kawhi Leonard buzzer beater. Absolutely beside himself. And I remember thinking in that moment, that's who Philadelphia is going to build their franchise around. Not the guy who's apathetic. The Jay Cutler of the NBA is what I used to call Ben Simmons. If Caleb Williams is so angry after a loss, you ever been like that in life? You've been so mad, it'll literally move you to the point of tears. That was Caleb Williams. And you know what I know when I see that? Crying with his mom in the stands. A, clearly he has a good support system. B, is, that's going to motivate him. Oh, that's going to drive him to put the time in, that extra rep in practice. Going to give him an extra half hour to hour in the film room. Putting the time in with the talent that he's already been blessed by the good Lord above and cultivated through his own hard work and coaching. And at the podium, I mean, the guy is as good as they come. I've talked about this. This matters. Quarterbacks being able to put the message out to the media. I am the quarterback. I have a job to do. I have a the kids say an aura to put out. Mahomes is awesome at it. Dak's awesome at it. Joe Burrow's awesome at it. Lamar Jackson's great at it. I've criticized Tom Brady was phenomenal. Peyton Manning was great at the podium. Eli Manning. It's why I've criticized Josh Allen in a way. I love Josh. He's a top 5 quarterback. But at times, you see the seeds of doubt in Josh's head after a loss. Like, he looks like you're almost sad watching it in a way. Caleb, put together, says all the right things, almost to a fault. I hate cliche quotes. And Caleb delivers the cliche quotes for the Bears media. But that's what he does. The only flaw I can see in Caleb Williams is maybe he tries too hard to make the greatest play in the world. That's a flaw that Andrew Luck had. That's a flaw, by the way, Mahomes had that early in his career. Like, right, you try and make the greatest play ever, and you take a sack or you throw a bad pick. That can be coached out of you. The raw ability, the emotional intelligence, he's got that. He's got that. Podium, great. Accuracy, great. Mobility, excellent. Durability thus far, knock on wood, has been excellent, despite having a bad offensive line at USC. Commands of leadership. By the way, goes to the Bears locker room, as the report talked about. Hey, guys, locker room looks fast. Clean it up. It's a professional organization. We got to look good. Some former players didn't like it. They didn't, that's, by the way, notice most of them were non-quarterbacks. I could tell you a lot of quarterbacks. I could see a Peyton Manning. I would love to, if I knew Peyton Manning. Oh my gosh, what'd that be like? If I could ask Peyton Manning, if I could ask Tom Brady, what do you think about that? Caleb Williams walks in the Bears locker room and says, hey, this is messy. We got to clean this up. Come on, we're professionals here. Make millions of dollars. Clean up our own darn locker room. Peyton would love it. Tom, I don't know that for certain, but I'm very, very confident that they would feel that way. So already commanding the respect of the locker room, day one. The ability, we showed you on this segment, it's evident in college. It's there. Emotional intelligence, motivation. Check, 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 check. I will make a bet now, barring injury, by the end of next season, so after 2025, so after the 26 NFL playoffs, January, February, whenever Chicago's season ends, I'm willing to make a bet that by then, by year 2, Caleb will be regarded as a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. Because I don't know about Joe Burrow's health. Lamar Jackson, we'll see. He plays a brand of football that will get him hit a lot. Josh Allen, same thing. CJ Stroud, right? We got to see him do it as time goes on. I have confidence he's going to do that. By year 2, Caleb Williams will be regarded as one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the sport. I'm telling you right now, I've never seen a prospect across the board. A+ arm strength, A+ accuracy, A+ mobility, emotional intelligence, A+. At the podium, A+. Leadership, A+. Some of the Bears players were talking about after the game. Never seen anything like it. That was just blown away by the guy. I'm telling you. Listen, I don't think the Bears are going to be a Super Bowl contender this year. As we know, no rookie has ever led his team to the Super Bowl. Even though some have come close. Brock Purdy, Dak, Russell Wilson. Guys have done it in the past. But I tend to make bets on history. But history tell you, by and large, when we talk about a transcendent prospect, more often than not, that whether it be the media, whether it be draft evaluators, whatever the case may be, most of the time tend to be right. LeBron, Wemby, guys like that, they tend to be right. So I think Caleb is going to be a transformative player in the NFL. So again, it's preseason, but he was playing some of the Bills starters, and the Bills have a pretty good defense. You saw the ball come out of his hands quick. You see the ability to extend to get outside the pocket, to make tough throws, off schedule. He can throw in the pocket, as we saw right there. By the way, he's got a good offensive line in front of him, and that's last thing I'll move to the comments. Because again, I love the guy. I think what is really going to be a fascinating thing to watch for Caleb Williams, and it's some of it's on Caleb and some of it's on the Bears coaching staff, is at USC, he had to be perfect in order for them to win a conference football game in the old Pac-12. If they were playing a Washington and Oregon, even a Colorado won 4 games last year, and Caleb had to be A++ for them to win that football game. Why? Because the defense was god-awful. Because they had a god-awful defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. He doesn't have to do that in Chicago. Now, he'll have games where he'll get in shootouts, absolutely. Every quarterback does. But on a game-to-game basis, he can go in. He can go to into a game against Minnesota Talented defense, got some players on offense, but Minnesota isn't going to hang 50 on your head. And he could say, okay, I have to be good. I got to take care of the football. I got to make plays from time to time, but I don't have to be Superman for us to win. On a game-to-game basis, from time to time, yeah. On a big divisional game at Lambeau, yeah, he'll probably have to be Superman. That's what the Bears drafted him. But on a week-to-week basis, nobody in the NFL does. Nobody that has a defense worth their salt does, and the Bears certainly do. The Bears were great in the second half of the season defensively. So, in case you can't tell already, I think Caleb is going to be unbelievable. John. Love you, bro, but don't let your cousin go up to the Olympics again and trying to breakdance. Who are you referring to? You referring to Steph? Who are you referring to, John? I did see, by the way, that, and frankly, I'm okay with it. I feel bad for the athletes in this sport, but you know what? It was needed. That it was announced, I don't know if it was by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, that breakdancing will not be a sport in the 2028 Olympics. So I don't know who you're referring to, John, to be completely honest with you. I hope you're not. Yeah, I don't think you're referring to Steph. Obviously, Steph is I'm white and Steph is not. But, you know, there you go. Shout out, John. Jeff, wait, the Bears prediction over-under is only 7 wins. I'm taking that bet. Jeff, oh, come on, Bryce. I just got in here. We're already hating on my guy Embiid again. No. Listen, I gave Embiid a compliment. Like that was, and again, to me, it relates to Caleb in the sense that when they lost that game to Toronto, and I saw Simmons' expression, I saw Embiid's expression. I'm like, okay, that tells me who the 76ers can build around. And again, I've been critical of Embiid. I've been very critical, even throughout this Olympics. And props to, okay. John just sent me a text. Apparently there. Oh yeah, I think I saw that, John, about the Australian Olympic breakdancing team. That was not great. That was not great. That was not at all. It's quite brutal. So that is a very good thing that is not going to be a sport in 28. But no, back to what you're saying, Jeff, though, about Embiid, is my criticism been of playoff performance. It's never been of effort. It's never been of effort. Joel Embiid, listen, say what you want about his playoff performance, and I've been at the front. I've been the conductor of that train. The guy plays through injury like nobody's business. Now, I'd like him to be healthier come playoff time and him take better care of his body. But come playoff time, he's hurt. He's playing. Sometimes not well, but he's playing. Meanwhile, Simmons is hurt, and he's nowhere to be found. Jeff, okay, he says, my top 5 quarterbacks 2 years from now. Number 1, Mahomes. Number 2, Jordan Love at number 2. Interesting. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 4, Brock Purdy. I think you're a little too high on Purdy. Number 5, Caleb Williams, and he has C.J. Stroud at 6. I would swap Stroud and Purdy if I were you, Jeff, and that's what I would do, because, again, with people think I hate Purdy. I actually really like Purdy. I call him Sturdy Purdy back in the day when he made his debut with the Bucks. I'm sorry, against the Bucks with the 49ers. But I think it is relatively obvious that as talented as he is, and he's got a good arm, he can move. We see he can move. He's got that. It's probably his greatest attribute, is most of the success is the product of that 49ers roster. Whereas in Buffalo, that's not the case. I've been critical of Josh, but he, by and large, up until the second half of last season, the Bills had no run game. None. It was Josh Allen, go be Superman. Now it's like, that's why I think people are too low on the Bills this season. Like, I'm leaning Bills to win the AFC East again because they have a top 5 quarterback. Their running game improved certainly from when Josh came into the league. And frankly, in Josh's years there in 20, 21, 22, when the Bills were dubbed Super Bowl contenders by many, including myself, that they could not run the football effectively. The defense, we know, will be always be solid under Sean McDermott because he's a defensive head coach. I think Joe Brady is an excellent offensive coordinator. So I'm not saying the Bills are Super Bowl contenders. I'm leaning them to win that AFC East because I don't trust the Jets coaching staff at all. And frankly, I don't trust Rodgers at 40 years old coming off of an Achilles. And in terms of Miami, love their coaching staff, but their defense is beat up and frankly not very good. And Tua is what he is, and that's a bad quarterback in bad weather. Or frankly, just chilly weather. So, there you go. And Patrick texted me this the other day. Shout out to Patrick Brown. He says he called it the bold and gold team, talking about the 2024 Olympic team. And I said, and I'm glad Patrick's in here to essentially help me do this, that by today I was going to have a better name for Team USA, and Patrick being the gentleman that he was able to help me get to that. But the bold and gold team. Now, it's between that or LeBron called it. They asked LeBron, what are they going to call this team? He said the Avengers. That's probably some truth to that. I mean, LeBron's Captain America. I guess Steph Iron Man, I guess. Of course, LeBron's like Captain America and Iron Man because he's rarely ever hurt. And he's kind of the Incredible Hulk because of his ridiculous strength. Embiid might be the Hulk. What Avenger would Steph be? Hawkeye? Hawkeye, I guess, makes sense. Right? So okay. So Steph could be Hawkeye. Who's Black Widow? Durant? KD's probably Black Widow. I don't know. We have to do this sometime. But the Bold and Gold team is pretty awesome as well. Bold and Gold team, Avengers, call them whatever you want to call them. But as far as I'm concerned, given the road to the final, given the roster, given the age, experience, and the coaching of that team, Team USA 2024, best Olympic team we've ever fielded in men's basketball. Respect of a dream team that they play guys who, honest to God, were not good enough to be in the G League. And by the way, we talk about the names of that team. Jordan, oh my God, Barkley and Magic post-retirement. And Bird, he never played again after that Olympics. Like, Bird was shot by 92. Magic was a lesser version of himself because he had just retired the year prior. So, there you go. I think we got to be intellectually honest about this stuff, about these conversations about the greatest Olympic teams ever. And, yeah, I think we're in a spot where that team's got to be considered the best. Let's move to Denver, though. So the Broncos played the Colts. It was actually a very entertaining preseason game. On the scale of not interesting at all, which was Dallas Rams, where Stetson Bennett, after throwing 4 picks, led a game-winning drive. By the way, hey, you Dak haters, you still think Trey Lance the answer? I'll leave that there. The most entertaining game, easily, was Broncos-Colts. Bo Nix played well. A lot of the Broncos, backups played well, as was the case with the Colts. So Bo Nix was a really tough one for me coming to the draft, because I always say that if there's 5, or in this case 6 quarterbacks that get drafted in the first round, by and large, it tends to be 2 are undoubted superstars. I always use the 2018 draft as an example. 1 is good, like an above average starter, and 2 are busts. Or in this case, 3 are busts. Now, I kind of thought it'd be 2-2-2, where it'd be 2 would hit, 2 would be superstars. I thought that would be the case with, or really, frankly, I thought it was going to be 3 with Caleb. I think Caleb's going to be awesome. Jaden Daniels, I think, has that capability, and I like Washington's coaching staff, and I love Michael Penix Jr. I think Penix is going to be the second best QB out of this draft when it's all said and done. And then the above average guy, I thought that would probably be Bo Nix for reasons that I'll get into in just a moment, and I thought the 2 busts would be May, because he's a very raw prospect. The Patriots don't really have a ton of time to develop him. They need to get him out in the field, and I think he's going to fail because of it. And J.J. McCarthy, respect to the kid, seems like a nice guy, I think is not a first-round talent, point blank. Arm strength comes and goes. He's very reliant on a running game, as we saw his days at Michigan. So I don't buy J.J. McCarthy just from a talent perspective, and I don't buy Drake May. He's a little raw, and he's going to a franchise that doesn't develop raw quarterbacks very well. That's why Tom worked so well there, because he was kind of polished come out of Michigan. Be his physical limitations what they were. Bo Nix. He was an older college starter. I believe he has the record for the most college starts ever made in history, going back to Auburn and at Oregon. He was productive with both, particularly with the Ducks. The arm strength is good. The accuracy, it's pretty good. Mobility is there. But I have questions about the simple fact of this. That's an AFC West that's got obviously the best quarterback in the world, obviously Mahomes. And with the Chargers, now with Jim Harbaugh, they've got Justin Herbert, who's easily a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And with Harbaugh, maybe he becomes top 5 eventually, because he's got that kind of ability. We'll see what he becomes, but we know what Justin Herbert is. And the Raiders are the Raiders. They're not very well run. The Broncos, by and large, have been well run throughout their history. Now, the last few years, the Russell Wilson contract, the Nathaniel Hackett hire, drafting Paxton Lynch in 2016 to succeed Peyton Manning, they made some poor decisions, and there's obviously a new ownership group, the Walmart family, essentially. Here's what I thought was really interesting. We could show you Bo Nix was, we talk about his box score against the Colts on Saturday for the Denver Broncos, or rather, I'm sorry, it was yesterday, Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. Bo Nix, 15 of 21, 125 yards, a touchdown, no turnovers, passer rating of 102. Here's what I thought was fascinating about Bo Nix. We could show you the graphic, all stats provided by StatMuse, all graphics provided by Alfred Parsard Jr. On third down, this is fascinating to me. Bo Nix, 4 for 5, 50 yards, touchdown. Obviously, no turnovers. Now, third down, what do we know about that? That's a situational down. That's where, especially if we're talking a median 3rd and 5, 6, or a long 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, everybody in the stadium knows they're going to throw the football unless they're in a burning clock type of situation. All eyes on the quarterback. The defensive call, whether they bring a blitz, whether they bring man, whether they bring zone, whether, depends on the situation that they're at on the, whatever side of the field they're on, what spot in the field they're on. Everybody knows it's a passing situation. 3rd and medium to 3rd and long. And Bo Nix was really good. It's a situational down. And if there's few coaches in the NFL, take Andy Reid and put him aside, take a Kyle Shanahan, who's made Jimmy G work, who's made Mr. Irrelevant, who is obviously better than when he was drafted, but make Brock Purdy work. I'm not sure there's many coaches in the NFL I'd want to work with a young quarterback than Sean Payton. Keep in mind, we think about Drew Brees. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. He won a Super Bowl. He had basically all the passing records before Tom Brady broke them all. It was all-time legend. Maybe the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. Drew was a very good starter with the Chargers. But by the time we got to the Saints, he was very good, could get you to the playoffs, but hey, he's got a bad shoulder. He's hurt. And Sean Payton helped him turn into one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. Surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, which I think he's eligible 2 years from now, and he'll obviously get in. Keep in mind, Sean Payton's last year with the New Orleans Saints, they used 4 quarterbacks in what was a stacked NFC. They won 9 games, and if not for a wild 49ers comeback on the eventual champion Rams, the Saints, who used 4 quarterbacks, would make the playoffs. Peyton's last year with the Saints. And he's here last year in Denver. It got off to a rough start. They started, I think it was 0-3. They gave up 70 to the Miami Dolphins infamously. Russell Wilson statistically had one of the best years of his career if we're talking about the last 5 seasons. Russell Wilson was treated by most as damaged goods. A year ago with Sean Payton, he threw 26 touchdown passes to 9 picks. He was pretty productive. Productive enough to get the Broncos to the playoffs? No. But productive. Helped his stock. And I don't think Russell Wilson is getting a chance in Pittsburgh today if not for Sean Payton. If not for him kind of being able to work with Russ. Now, that relationship fizzled out in the end because Russ and Sean are very different people who I think see things very, very differently from a football perspective and context. But Bo Nix is a relatively, I don't think you can be more refined, in terms of mechanically, in terms of experience than Bo Nix. Bo Nix is the most experienced quarterback probably ever coming out of college because of all those starts at Oregon and at Auburn. I mean, Bo Nix, true story, was playing against Justin Herbert in college. Literally, I remember that game. It was in Jerry World. Auburn, Oregon. Bo Nix threw a game-winning touchdown to beat Justin Herbert, who's going into year 5. So he's got as much experience as anybody. And historically speaking, older starters don't tend to work. Brandon Whedon's an example. Who's another guy? I'm trying to think of some quarterbacks back in the day that have not worked historically because there's a reason they were in college for as long as they were, but it tends to not work. But if you're going to a play designer and a coach as brilliant as Sean Payton is, a guy who helped Drew Brees become an all-time legend, a guy who is last year in New Orleans using 4 quarterbacks, all of them backups, almost made the playoffs, and who turned Russell Wilson from damaged goods into, hey, he's still probably a pretty good starter in the NFL. Who's to say he can't work with Bo Nix? Now, again, my concern remains but I think best case he'll be the 3rd best starter in his own division behind Mahomes and behind Justin Herbert. But that said, can he at least be productive? Can we be in a situation where 2-3 years from now we view Bo Nix in the same context as we do Tua? Yeah, I think that's absolutely on the table because Tua has a brilliant offensive coach in Mike McDaniel. Tua has weapons. Who's to say the Broncos, with the picks that they have now, can't get some weapons over the course of the next couple of drafts? So, again, I'm not saying Bo Nix is going to be a Pro Bowler, but could he be Tua, Purdy in terms of production? Yeah, sure he can. Sure he can because of the coaching staff he has around him. Now, if Sean Payton wasn't there, I wouldn't buy Bo Nix at all. But that's been mostly the story of NFL history. There are very few exceptions where, by and large, it matters where you end up. Like Andrew Luck ended up with the Colts, who were a 2-win team, who had just moved off of Peyton Manning, were a bad roster. Year 1, they made the playoffs. Like, that normally does not happen. Trevor Lawrence inherited a Jaguars team that was the joke of football within 2 years won a playoff game and put the world champion Chiefs on the brinks. So, or on the brink rather. So I don't think Bo Nix is that level of talent of a Luck or of a Trevor Lawrence. So coaching matters. That's why I don't buy Drake. If Drake May got Sean Payton, that might be a different story. I might feel differently about Drake May. But he didn't. And so, yeah, I think Bo Nix can be a very good starting quarterback in this league. That's my take. I think Caleb's going to be awesome. I think Penix is going to be awesome. I think Jaden Daniels, I'm leaning more, he's going to be awesome than not. Bo can be a good starter. And J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, I don't buy either. McCarthy because of just physical limitations, and May in large part because he's so raw and where he ended up. The Patriots, who we know they're somewhat allergic to offense. They need an EpiPen for that. All right, last topic of the day before we get out of here. And I see my man Patrick, that's a great comment. The Curry McFlurry. They need to sell that at McDonald's. If not here in the States, they never sell it in France because Team USA beat France to win gold medal. But I would like to see that for maybe a one-day only thing. McDonald's sells the Curry McFlurry. They would, listen, if Steph were endorsed by them, you best believe that happened, but we'll see. Speaking of Curry, and adding to that conversation, LeBron James and Kevin Durant, all three have alluded to the fact that this is probably their last Olympics. Now, historically speaking, not only should it be, but then none of them, with the possible exception of KD, just if we're talking strictly age, should be here for playing for Team USA. Bron's 39, Steph's 36, KD's 35. 4 years from now, though, Olympics is on American soil. It's in beautiful Los Angeles, California, Hollywood. And we know they'll do a fantastic job hosting the Olympics. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not even saying it's likely. I'm actually leaning towards 75-25. LeBron, Steph, and KD do not participate in the 28 Olympics. But I'm also not saying it's off the table. Going back to what I said earlier about LeBron, I said that it would tie into this last segment. I said, will LeBron James ever, or sorry, not will he, because Father Time's obviously undefeated. He'll get us all eventually. At what point, at what age will LeBron James be a net negative for his team? What point will his team, whoever he plays for, Lakers or otherwise, be better when he's not there, when he's off the floor? Because right now, we are nowhere near that. At what point will the Warriors, hopefully Steph is a Warrior for life, if we can get him a superstar next to him, when will Steph be, oh, God, get Steph off the floor. He's just not consistently. Steph will have bad games just like everybody else, but where Steph will decrease your chances of winning. Same with Kevin Durant. When's that going to be the case? Because I just saw KD average 27 on insane efficiency. So KD still ball, Steph still ball, LeBron still ball. They obviously won't be in 2028 what they are in 2024, but can they be one of the 12 best American players? Given the fact that the majority, as time goes on, the majority of the superstars in the NBA, not U.S.-born players. For the record, Joel Embiid's not going to play for Team USA in 2028. He's probably, he talked about he wants to play for Cameroon. I believe his native country, so good for him. He's got his gold medal, now he wants to play for his native country. God bless him. Embiid won't be on Team USA in 28. You look around the world, Wemby's going to be 4 years better. Jokic isn't going anywhere. Giannis should still be there. Luka, if Slovenia is able to get into the Olympics in 28. All around the world, the world, the whole thing, oh, the world's not catching up to us. I heard Shaquille O'Neal, and I love Shaq. Shaq's my guy. He's the best. But I heard Shaq on a podcast the other day say, I hear that the world's caught up to us. I don't buy that. I think we're just soft. Respectfully, Shaq, that's ridiculous. You have a 7-footer. You have a 7-footer from Serbia who can put up, Jason Kidd assist numbers, Andre Drummond rebounding numbers, and Kevin Durant scoring numbers. That's ridiculous. By the way, Serbia had some other good players. Bogdanovic, they had a really, really solid squad. And I was happy, by the way, that Serbia medaled after the dogfight that they put up against Team USA in the semifinal game. So you have that. You have a guy in Giannis, I think it's been well established by now. Greek freak. We know who he is. All-time great defensive player. We talk about Unstoppable, as I say. Giannis, most unstoppable player within 5 feet of the basket since the guy I just referred to, Shaquille O'Neal. KSI, he shoots well over 60% every season. Luka, he needs to improve defensively, and he needs to improve in terms of getting his teammates involved, moving the basketball, and that's going to be key for the Mavericks if they want to get back to the finals next year. But he can score with the best of them. He can distribute the best of them. He can rebound the best of them. He's great. He's triple-double threat every single night he's on the floor. And Wemby, I don't know, he's 7'5", can shoot and handle the ball. That sounds pretty good. I say all that to say, you're telling me, and we don't listen, Cooper Flagg, we'll see what he is. We'll see if there's any other prospects down the line. And Edwards feels like a lock for 28. Tatum feels like a lock. Jaylen Brown, probably a lock. We hope, at least, for 2028. Drew Holiday's going to be on. Derek White may make the team again. We'll see. It's kind of like a good role player. Halliburton feels like a lock. Halliburton play much largely due to injury. Halliburton feels like he's going to be there. We start going out of line. Jimmy Butler's going to be older. Who else am I thinking of? Who else for Team USA? Jalen Brunson, maybe. Jalen Brunson could be on Team USA potentially. But if nothing else, in terms of leadership, you're telling me the Team USA be better without LeBron James? In terms of shooting, they'd be better without Steph Curry 4 years from now? In terms of just get us a bucket, they'll be better without Kevin Durant in 2028? I have a hard time believing. And by the way, it's hinged on whether LeBron's still playing. I think Steph will still be playing in all likelihood. KD probably the same thing. If they want to, I do not see a scenario in which those three guys are not the three best players for Team USA, or three of the best players for Team USA. I just don't see it. I don't see them not being one of the best. Now, 4 years from now, LeBron's going to be 43, Steph's going to be 40, and KD's going to be 39. I get that. But I see what they are now. You saw they can't be that in the future? Hard time believing that. Dealing with some connection issues. Thankfully, at the end of the show, because we're about to get out of here, I see my monitor right here. For some reason, our connections is dealing with some problems. I don't know what's up. All right, let me answer Patrick's comment, and then I'll get out of here because I don't know what's up with the connection. I'm gonna put up Patrick's comment right here. All right, Patrick, LeBron's beard has a few gray hairs over the last few days. That is true, but he was most valuable. Steph was most important. Great run, and rest assured, I'll have an article ready to publish here soon. Well, I can't wait to read that, Patrick. It was so cool. Last thoughts before I get out of here, because I'm a Steph guy, but I have immense respect for LeBron. You heard me in my second segment. I think he's the greatest player of all time, and I think it's starting to border into getting a little ridiculous. As a matter of fact, well, I'll save that take for the end because I just thought about something that I've thought about before. Steph and LeBron fans have been at each other's necks for so long. You know, for a while, it's like, oh, Steph's got as many rings as LeBron, and LeBron's got the MVPs, but Steph was 3-1 against him in the finals, but Steph had the better teams than LeBron, and it was interesting to see those fan bases like unite. That's why, again, the Avengers Assemble thing was a real thing. And I thought that was really cool. Like, it's kind of like how, I don't know how it was in 2008. I was 5 years old in 2008, but I don't know what it was like if the Kobe Jordan fans, I don't know what the basketball culture then was like, but if the Kobe LeBron fans kind of came together around that time, because LeBron was starting to gain on Kobe, because Kobe at that time was the best player in the world. LeBron was starting to gain on him. I don't know. I'm really curious to see what that would have looked like. Jeff has a question, and then I'll get to my final take, because I just thought about this. Jeff said, Bryson, random question. Where is your favorite places to watch NFL games? Unless you're talking about stadiums, of which I've only been to one, Tampa Bay, which is a great stadium. Tampa's got a great fan base. That was a Cowboys-Bucks game. It was opening night in 2021. It was a phenomenal game. It was Brady's last great year. Dak coming off an injury. It was a great game. If you're talking about like sports bars at home, listen, I don't have a preference. I do. I would prefer to watch a football game if I'm not at the stadium, at home, in front of a television. You get to see everything, you get to see the commentary, see the whole field and whatnot, or at least what's needs to be shown on the television. Football's a great game on TV. Baseball, not as much. I feel like the experience is the gap between an in-person baseball game as opposed to watching the game from home The gap between that with baseball is bigger than it is in football and basketball in my mind, especially basketball, because basketball, you just need to see what's happening on one side of the floor, right? So I would say at home, Jeff, watching a game, especially like on Sunday Ticket when you had like the four boxes to watch, like especially like the early window games. But that said, a sports bar has a whole different vibe. It's more of a community atmosphere. There's great food. There's rowdy fan bases and whatnot. So a sports bar is great. And listen, they're different. I personally, especially because I do a show, especially because if we're talking about Sunday, I'm gonna do a show the next day on Monday. I want to make sure I've got my notes right. I want to make sure if I saw something in a game and maybe I can point out something that nobody else has pointed out. I feel like if I can put it, this is the best way I can put it, Jeff. Watching a game at home is better for my process on this show. But watching at a sports bar is probably, from a community standpoint, much more enjoyable. So that would be my answer. The thing I just thought about, and then we'll get out of here, because something Patrick said sparked something in my head, and this is why I love Patrick when he's in the comments, because he'll always say something, and for some reason it'll just like an idea will come in my head. The LeBron Jordan argument, right, is very polarizing, very divisive, and the majority of media pundits and fan bases tend to lean Jordan. I'd say it's about 65-35, probably 70-30, somewhere in that ballpark leans Jordan over LeBron in the GOAT discussion. But I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that over the weekend, especially after Team USA won gold. There was a quote years ago from George Lucas, obviously the creator of Star Wars, and I'm a massive Star Wars fan. And George Lucas had a great quote. He said that the media controls how people feel about certain film franchises, certain celebrities, certain movies, athletes, games, whatever the case may be. But once the next generation comes around and takes power of the media, they will have a different leaning. And the reason George Lucas said that is because for years, the OG Star Wars fans are like the gatekeepers. The original trilogy is the best. Everything else is garbage. And the original trilogy is... And now we've seen kind of the millennials come into the media fold more so than the OG Star Wars fans. And they're like, guys, the prequels are really good. Like, Revenge of the Sith might be the best Star Wars movie ever made. And that was an original trilogy. They have more control. I see a scenario in which not as much, but where the sequels, of which I used to be a critic of, did a deeper dive into them, I'm now a huge fan of, is I think once Gen Z comes to the media fold, I think the Star Wars sequels will get more love than they got upon initial release, just like the prequels did. I say that because once millennials, Gen Z take control of the media, take control is a bad way to put it, start to come into the media fold, you will see a shift toward LeBron James. And when the next generation comes, you'll see a shift somewhere else. Is that people are very, whether it be nostalgia, I don't know what it is, but people are very protective of their era. Like I hear, God bless him, I've heard so many members of that 92 Dream Team. Oh, basketball was at its peak in the 90s. Was it? Really? When the games were like, teams were struggling to break 80 points, 90 points? That was the peak of basketball. When you could throw somebody and the worst case you get is a flagrant one. That was basketball. That was fun. I always said the two peaks of basketball, 1980s, 2010s. Now, who knows? Maybe the 2020s surpass both. Who knows? But in terms of the depth of talent, in terms of the excitement of big playoff games, 1980s, 2010s. Those were the peak. And like the 70s was by far and away not even close to the worst decade of NBA basketball. There was no dynasties. Just goes to show you, dynasties are great for sports and great for the NBA. And you talk about the stars. The guys who had star quality. It was Magic, and it was Bird, and it was early in the decade, it was Dr. J. And toward the end of the decade, it was Michael Jordan, and it was Isaiah Thomas, Hakeem Olajuwon. 90s, it was MJ, Hakeem, Chuck. Shaq was starting to come into his own, but that's just about it. Ewing was great, didn't have the star quality those guys did. Same with Reggie Miller. Karl Malone was great, but can never get over the hump. And by the way, the reason I say Charles Barkley doesn't have any rings that Karl Malone has, but both have an MVP, and Charles Barkley was, by the numbers, not in terms of player, but by the numbers, the best player on the Dream Team, even over Jordan. So that's kind of my take. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about that George Lucas quote about Star Wars and how people get defensive about their particular era of Star Wars films among the Star Wars fan base. The OGs say the original trilogy. And by the way, all three trilogies are great. There's some ones I'm not a huge fan of. Attack of the Clones. There's some ones in there that are kind of duds, but by and large, the trilogies are all well-produced, well-written, and the media narrative is in large part shifted, created based off of what generation's in there. We hear about how, it was great back in the, no offense to the older generations, but here, the 1950s was, we had segregation and women couldn't have a credit card. Like, not every era is the greatest. Hopefully, knock on wood, we continue to improve, to get better. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with nostalgia or having an affinity for the time in which you grew up or got started in life. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Matter of fact, it's great. But that does not automatically make it the best. So, in terms of how the media shapes the narratives on LeBron and Jordan, it's large part generational. That's my take. Oh, wow. Okay. Jeff has a very interesting take. The LeBron versus Jordan GOAT debate is hilarious. Anybody with a brain knows it's LeBron, and Jordan is massively overrated, just as Nick Wright and I have LeBron, Kareem, and Jordan at 3. So here's my thing, Jeff, and then we'll get out of here. I didn't expect to go here on the show, but I'm glad we did. I think this is a really fascinating conversation. So I agree with you. LeBron's the GOAT. Here's the thing with Kareem. The argument I hear for Kareem and Jordan from Nick Wright, who I have the utmost respect for Nick Wright. I think he's one of the best in the business and love seeing the success that he's had at FS1. Nick, and you as well, Jeff, put Kareem 2, Jordan 3. Because Kareem has just as many championships as Michael, more MVPs than Michael, greater longevity than Michael, and for 4 decades had the all-time scoring record before LeBron broke it in 2023. Here's how I would counter that. The majority of Kareem's individual accomplishments came in the 1970s. That was the weakest decade in NBA history. The league just about died prior to Magic Bird. And B, in that span, with those individual accomplishments, he got 1 championship. Now, I'm not a guy. There's no argument in sports debate that bothers me more than, Jordan, 6 rings. 6 rings. What are you going to do with that? 6 is more than 4. That's ridiculous. Folks had Peyton Manning over basically every quarterback in history, not named Brady, Montana, and in my opinion, Mahomes. He's got 2 rings. So it can't just be count the rings. The majority of Kareem's accomplishments came, in the weakest decade in NBA history, the 70s, and he got 1 championship out of that decade. And so I think that matters. Also, and this is where the Kareem Magic stuff is really fascinating. Because part of the reason, Magic is ahead of Steph in like every category other than scoring. Yeah, and Magic inherited prime Kareem. Prime Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Magic having Kareem doesn't hurt his legacy. I don't think we should punish players for having great teammates. But it isn't as if like Magic was spearheading the Lakers dynasty in the early 80s. No, that was Kareem. Kareem should have, I will argue with anybody over this, should have been the 1980 Finals MVP over Magic Johnson. It is objectively should have been the case. That said, at the end of the Lakers dynasty, Kareem got a couple extra, and he was a contributor, by the way, but Kareem got a couple extra rings with Magic leading the charge as the best player in the world. And so that would be my counter. Whereas with Jordan, Best player throughout the dynasty with a great number 2 in Scottie Pippen, by the way. I mean, again, people are like, oh, Pippen, what is he? Pippen almost won league MVP the year Jordan left, which is, by the way, part of the reason that I have LeBron over Jordan. One of the many reasons. So these are nuanced discussions, fun discussions. Listen, that was a 10 minutes on the show I didn't think we'd have, but I'm glad we did. That was really interesting, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. With that said, that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We are hopefully on the road to getting to 5,000 subscribers. That is the goal. That is the mission. That is how we're trying to get to. That is the next goal we're trying to get to. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Your support means everything to me, to everybody involved with the show. I can't thank you enough. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Nealon has been talkative as whiz lately. Probably need to have a heart-to-heart conversation with my guy. He's had a lot to say as of late. I love Nealon. He's my best furry friend in the whole world. Love that little guy. Please tell everybody though to subscribe to Carving It Up. If you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you're part of the Carving Up family. And I'm here to tell you right now, it's a great group, great support system. The show does not exist without the subscribers, the viewers. It doesn't happen. I could do the greatest show that's ever been done in the history of the world. It means nothing if I don't have an audience. So I greatly appreciate everybody taking times out of their day to tune in. And please, if you have a little bit of time in your hands, just a couple seconds, please subscribe to the channel. All right, I will see y'all on Wednesday. We're going to have a fun show Wednesday. We're going to have Carving Up the Context and Bryson's Best 10 as usual. Bryson's Best 10, by the way, my top 10 players in the NBA. And by the way, the reason I'm doing that is because I did my top 10 players after the finals were over. Well, normally after the finals are over, 3 years out of 4, we don't have an Olympics. And so I've kind of readjusted my list, not like totally shifted it and thrown everything out the window, but it has shifted based on what we saw in the Olympics from Team USA and from other players for other countries. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to be doing something starting Wednesday that I did last year prior to the upcoming football season, the biggest strengths and weaknesses of every team in the NFL. So Wednesday, what we're going to do, AFC East, NFC East, biggest strengths and weaknesses of those 8 teams. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to have a jam-packed show on Wednesday. Very excited for that. So stay safe out there, y'all. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans each and every day. And no matter what anybody on either side of the aisle tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are not true. Both are BS. It's a massive problem that needs a number of clear, concise, and nuanced solutions to it, especially with this being an election year. If your leader, whether they be in office or not, does not show any inclination to solve this problem, either vote them out or vote against them, because we got to keep our people in this country safe each and every day. And this is an issue I'm very passionate about. So there you go. All right. I'll see you on Wednesday. Gonna be a fun one. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. American excellence is at its finest, baby. Let's go. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.